question from a reader. Um, so before I say the question, I'll just share that the reader shares some context around asking that comes from, I think, some of the things that I've shared and their own insight. I have an article series called The Power of Asking, which will link below this video. And some of the ideas about like asking creates, yes. Asking creates possibilities, asking sets things in motions, asking draws doorways into worlds that didn't exist before we ask. That's something I said in one of my videos about asking. Absolutely. But then the reader asks, um, shouldn't the emphasis then be on asking as an inquiry versus creating, as in what would you love to create today? And then if you have a protocol on asking, what would that be? And so, yes and no. Uh, the priority should be on creating, and asking is creating. It's kind of the beginning of creating. I wouldn't say necessarily the beginning. Stillness, silence, nothing. Peace, freedom is the beginning. Um, but once you're in that space of emptiness, once you're just watching, once you're just listening, once you're open, once your mind is free from thought and thinking, you've love in your heart, to continue to sit and wait forever without injecting anything from your consciousness is actually kind of flipping to the other side where it's like, I'm just a leaf in the wind, man. I'm just going with the flow. My conscious my capacity for consciousness and directing my attention has no role to play in this great unfolding of life. Which doesn't make any sense, because if I am the universe unfolding, then I both want to go with the flow of circumstances in the world and arising in me, and I also want to realize that my conscious will and my ability to direct attention is part of that flow. And so saying yes to all of it. So to take it into a more pragmatic language, I guess, for a second, is to say that, like, for me, it's just it's kind of funny that the example this person gave, as like, instead of creating, maybe we should be asking. And the example that gives us creating is, what would you love to create today, which is a question. And so um, to ask yourself questions every morning or every day or throughout the day is an act of creation. The thing is, we're asking ourselves questions all the time unconsciously anyway, and often uh, they're habitual questions that aren't really of liberating the full expression of our power. The most common one, which I say is an expression of the achiever, is, what should I do? What should I do? Like, the lazy person is not even achieving anything, doesn't even ask that. There's like, well, maybe what do I have to do? But what should I do today? What should I do? And there's an imposition of the word should. It moves you into action if you're a yes to what you should do, but the imposition is that there's an idea about what you should do that comes from the world, that makes you lovable, that makes you enough. It's not usually a question that's asked as an expression of acknowledgement of the necessary conditions to create particular outcomes that are an expression of your authentic desire. It's usually, what should I do to be a good person, to be enough? And so we're living that question unconsciously. And most of our days are directed, most people, most of the time, are directing their days through unconsciously living that question, answering it, and taking action. Most productive people, anyway. But you can actually become aware of what is the question you are already asking habitually, unconsciously, and you can liberate yourself from that pattern of asking by becoming aware of it and then choosing a different question to ask. So for me, what would I love to create? What would I love to do is a consciously inculcated orientation. It was reinculcated because it's lost from childhood. That's what we come into the world. What would I love today to do, to be? Um, so for me, the emphasis absolutely should be on asking, and asking is creating. So how could I create stillness? I mean, you can even ask a question to bring you out of thinking and to take you out of the space of noise that gets in the way of asking a more powerful question. That might lead you to a meditation practice or something like that. And here, I guess, the thing that I want to say most of all in response to this is to watch out for the spiritual ideals becoming these new obstacles. You know, I see it a lot when people, like, they discover something like the three principles, and they find freedom and liberation by understanding the distinction between thought, mind, and consciousness. It's a beautiful way of experiencing and interpreting reality. because it snaps you out of the matrix, and there's a groundedness that emerges simply through that understanding. It's beautiful. And then there becomes a way of holding on to that as like this is the truth. And in fact there's a community around that where it's kind of similar to some dogmatic religions where it's like we know the truth and you don't, and you need to come to the understanding, and once you see the light then you'll be free. And you know, lots of ways, there's lots of paths to the light, but when you believe that this path is the one true path, or when you believe that this is the holy grail and this is the only thing you need to be in the world, then you miss out. There's a whole other side to reality. Like my friend James says, nobody, because the three principles really hold like well-being and groundedness and peace as like that's all you need. It's but my friend points out, yeah, but nobody wants to fuck in well-being. Nobody wants to fuck in peace. There's more to life than groundedness, peace, and well-being. There's creation, right? And that comes through the passion of sexual intimacy, for one. It comes through the passion of the heart creating in the world mimetically, and our consciousness and our ability to direct our attention and to ask questions plays a role in that. And so that is creating the insemination of a possibility through the asking and the reception of that question in the heart and the listening for the answer that might come. Together, those things are what create. And so, yes, creating is primary, and asking is one of the primary tools in creating. When I say tools, I mean things that you can do to create in your life and your world. And so it was kind of a deep question. I hope that was a thoroughly deep answer, but I also hope that it was practical and pragmatic. If anybody watching this wants me to expand on any of those ideas, please ask below. Your asking creates. And thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for reading. Thanks for being here. Stick around for more. I love you, and I'll talk to you soon.